When the officers arrived, they found that the active shooter had been shot by a security staff member of the church, a courageous security staff member who probably saved many lives today.
On December 9th, 2007, Matthew Murray walked into a Youth with a Mission training center in Arvada, Colorado, killed 2 people, wounded 2 more, and then escaped. He then drove down to Colorado Springs, waited outside New Life Church after the second service, and opened fire. He killed 2 more people, injured 3, before being shot by Jeanne Assam, a member of the church's security team, who is now my guest on the podcast today. We cover a multitude of topics, including how people are viewing the police today, protests turning violent, and of course, her firsthand experience of stopping the gunman at New Life Church. Our conversation starts about a Facebook post that she posted.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw my latest post, but I posted, hey, you can't be protesting every time there's a person gets shot by a police officer. I said, that's ridiculous. I said, bottom line, you point a gun at any police officer, you will suffer the consequences. And I'm like, don't make foolish choices. I said, we don't see color. We don't see race. We see the gun. We don't care what color you are. We see the gun. Race has nothing to do with it. People were arguing with me. Some people were like, police officers don't have the training that school teachers and social workers have. And it's like, what? It takes almost a year in the larger departments to get on with a police department. It's like not just anybody can be a cop, and they're saying, this latest shooting, I don't know where it was, but they're saying, he shouldn't have been a cop, it was just his pride that he killed this guy. And it's like, pride? These days, no cop wants to kill anybody, especially because of the legal stuff. And I said, officers, you must stand your ground, or you're not going to go home to your wife or your husband at night. You can't hesitate because of pressure from the media and from these pukes on the street. You cannot hesitate for a second or you're dead.
So, do you think there should be, I'm actually reading your post, and you're right, I'm seeing all these comments of people are getting, it's either, I feel like everyone's just, it's so emotional, this subject, and people just get caught up in the emotions and not in the facts. And yes, there are bad cops, and I see that, but from what I've seen before, it's I don't know, it's hard for me to, what I hate the most is when I see a video of an officer involved shooting, and they go, oh, here's another example of a cop shooting someone. But then it's like, well, let's see the 20 minutes before this even started, and you don't know and people are just using it as their narrative. And it just blows my mind that it's actually, it works, and it's terrible.
Yeah, the media is, Satan is the prince of the airwaves. And what are the airwaves? That's the media. And not all are awful, just like not all cops are bad, but there's some nasty media out there that are trying to cause President Trump to be defeated, which I pray to God he isn't, and they're trying to cause hatred, as much hatred as possible, and division, hatred toward the police and division amongst the people. That's exactly Satan's plan as well, and he's using the media for that. Are we recording now? Let's get right into it.
Oh yeah, no, I started recording before I asked the first question.
Oh,
is that right? Is that all right? And I'll let you and I'll let you hear all this too. If once we go over it, and if you I should probably take this out, just let me know. So you get full access to it, and you can approve or disapprove or whatever. So
okay.
So no, this has been great. What got you into? Did you always want to be a police in law enforcement?
No, I didn't. I didn't grow up with a family of cops. No one in my family is a police officer. So, you know, like, are you going to be a doctor or a lawyer? Or are you going to be a, you know, whatever was very prestigious profession. 7 of us kids. And it's not like, are you going to go to college? From my parents, it was, you will go to college. There is no choice. And, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. So my parents just wasted thousands of dollars on me as I, you know, I'm like, well, I want to do business. I want to do this. I want to be an attorney. I might want to be a doctor. I like to write. So I took journalism. So I went to like 5 different colleges, and, you know, my sister was in medical school, and she got accepted to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So my mom was like, and so we were living in California, and I was wanting to go maybe into acting, and which I could have, because I was chosen to be an extra in a movie. You know, like out of 300 people, they chose me, so I got to do hair and makeup and everything, and then they chose me to do 5 more movies, you know, with Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, his brother, and a bunch of other movies. And my parents had come out there and moved my sister back to Minnesota, where the Mayo Clinic is, and they said, my mom goes, your father and I are not going to approve you being some actress or, you know, doing any of that. So you can come back to Minneapolis. You can go to Hamlin Law School like your brother did. We'll get you an apartment by the lake, and your father will get you a car. And I was like, done. So I moved back to Minneapolis, and, you know, long story short, met some Minneapolis cops and started riding along with them, you know, because I'm adventurous, and it was something I didn't know the world of, is police work. So I was just riding along and curious, and I'm like, this is me. You know, quick thinking, dangerous. I mean, I like danger, not jumping out of an airplane danger, but I am quick thinking in the midst of danger and chaos, and, you know, and I just fell in love with it. So I switched majors. I was going to Hamlin, doing undergraduate pre-law classes, and I didn't like it. And switched majors, criminal justice and psychology, and graduated from there and got hired right away. I applied with Minneapolis Police and St. Paul PD, number 1 on St. Paul's list out of a couple thousand applicants, and number 3 with Minneapolis, same thing. I rode along every month, because you could only ride along with Minneapolis once a month. So every month while I went to college, those 4 years, because I wanted to be ready and prepared. And I was when I graduated college. And I was, you know, I got hired right away. And some people wait years and years and years to get hired. And I just had favor, and I got hired with Minneapolis. And I loved it. I was assigned to the 4th precinct, which is the most dangerous, with the Crips and the Bloods and shootings all the time, and, you know, high-speed chases, foot chases, bank robberies, you know, domestic violence, felony stops with cars, you know, just, oh my goodness, I was in heaven. I just loved it. It just fit me. I found myself. I found my identity. And I loved coming to the rescue of people who needed help. That was the most satisfying job I've ever had in my life. You know, like, we just saved somebody. We just saved their life. We just, you know, it was just so satisfying. What an honor to be a police officer.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
One of my friends, when I lived in Orange County, California, when I was out there like in early 2000s, he was a police officer in Huntington Beach for 25, 30 years. something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so like super nice guy. And I would always joke around because he would always show me how many guns he like because he always carried 2 or 3 guns, and he was just super like whatever. But we'd be in church, and I'm like, how many guns do you have on that? And he'd like because he was one of those gun experts, just loved. Anyway, I asked him, I said, would you do it all over again? And he goes, if I had 50 lifetimes, I would choose every lifetime to be a cop. He says it was the most amazing career. Because I wish I could do it over again every lifetime. I'm like, oh, that's when you found your calling.
How many people can say that in their careers? That's exactly how I feel. I mean, you have to have the right personality and the right makeup. You know, not everybody, not anybody should be a cop. I mean, you really have to be a specially made person to be a police officer, you know, and it was just perfect for me. You have to be physically fit. You have to be courageous. You have to be patient. You're a social worker. You're a medic. You are. You have to be quick. You know, have to draw your gun and know that without hesitation, you have to sometimes take a life if need be, or you won't go home at night. And every day, all day, you got different calls. You never knew what you were going to get next, and I just found that so fun. I just loved it. And I loved the satisfaction and the gratefulness of people after we helped them, you know. Just loved it. Loved being able to show even the bad guys, the gang members, love. You know, like I was like, hey, these are hardcore Crips and Bloods. These aren't the pretend wannabes like Denver has. These are the real thing. These are killers that have killed many people before, and you know, they didn't grow up like we did, and they wanted respect, and they wanted to be loved whether they knew it or not. They knew they wanted respect, and it's like, treat them with respect. They're still people. They're not animals. I don't care what color they were. They were people to me, and I cared about them. Wouldn't turn my back on them, but I cared about them, and I showed them the best way I could by just being very respectful. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Oh no, it makes total sense. I've seen videos on YouTube where they'll get a noise complaint or something. The cops will show up, and it's just a bunch of kids in the ghetto or in the hood playing basketball, and they get a little loud. And the cops show up and they say, "Well, here, let's play one-on-one," and then can we play? And they build that community where the cops are playing with the kids, and they just say, "Hey, can you just keep it down a little bit? Keep playing, just keep everything down." And it's like, well, that just builds relationship in the community. It builds respect on both ends. The kids are not going to be afraid of the cops. The cops are not going to be afraid of these kids in certain areas. They just want respect, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's like that's exactly how you do it. You don't educate with hatred. You educate with love, and it's like even traffic stops. When I would pull people over for failing to obey a red light, I would be like, if they had an attitude, they were getting a ticket because they weren't going to listen, they weren't going to learn. But if they were like, I am so sorry, I've had a stressful morning, or I wasn't thinking, they were the ones where I was like, it's not about you. You're late. What if you run a red light? I want you to think about this. What if you run a red light and you T-bone a family going to lunch and you kill them all, or you get killed? I'm like, was just a few seconds where you could have stopped at that intersection, was it worth it running it, taking that chance? So it's not just about you. You think about other people, and then I would just advise instead of give them a ticket. And to me, that made me feel good, and I think they learned from that. Obviously, the ones, like I said, were like, "Can you hurry up, officer? I'm in a hurry." They were getting a ticket, and they did. So,
I remember the level of respect I got for police officers when I got my concealed carry license, and I the first time I carried, It was a Glock 19, and I was all proud, whatever. But I remember going like, I don't know what would I even do if something were to happen. Like I don't even know if I could pull the gun out of my hidden holster yet, let alone engage the barrel or anything. It's like I said, I was nervous like the first month I concealed carry, because I'm like, I don't know what I've got no training. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was doing it just because I could, and it was really quick to get. And, and it got easier, but I'm like, but to live that life every single day where you're putting your life on the line, I mean, it's a huge responsibility, and it's not easy.
And that's a very good point. It's something we do every day. So carrying a gun and being ready to rock and roll is something police officers do every day, which is why I do not agree with teachers carrying a weapon, because they act like just anybody can be a cop in a second, when that's not true. You're teaching history or something like that, and a student comes in and you think you're going to be ready to, it's very intimidating when somebody comes in shooting, holds or points a gun at your face. And, I know that teachers don't use chalk, but I said, you can't drop the chalk and pick up a gun. It doesn't work like that. And what if a teacher who, they mean well, which I admire, I respect that, but what if a teacher accidentally leaves their gun in the restroom because they're not used to carrying it, and the wrong student gets it? And we used to be called countless times as Minneapolis police officers to the schools, and I'm talking high school and younger even, because some of those kids are huge, and the teacher was getting assaulted. Now, what if the big, huge, angry student takes the gun off the teacher? Just things like that. They're ridiculous. You need to have school resource officers in place, or teachers who are maybe had a background in law enforcement. They were prior law enforcement. But other people, no, you don't do that. And you have to ask yourself, can you kill somebody? Can you take a life? Because you don't shoot in the arms or the legs, because they're very skinny targets. That's an expert shot. So when you're under pressure getting shot at.
You're right. Someone who doesn't have the training. I mean, like I said before, I would conceal carry, but like so I had a Glock 19. I wouldn't put one in the chamber, because I was too afraid that, like, if I did, that I would shoot myself, like trying to get out. And then, like, I had a police officer friend tell me, it's like, she's like, well, in the moment, if you pull your gun out, you're going to forget, because all the adrenaline, that you don't have one in the chamber. And it's like, are you going to have the wherewithal to do that? And I'm like, crap, I don't know, So
right,
but I never did. Yeah.
And did you hear me when I said people need to ask themselves, can I take a life if I'm in that situation? Will I be able to take a life? Did you get any of that?
Yes. Said that, because it's an expert shot to be shot in the limbs, and then you're right, because like when I took my firing test, I should not have passed. Like I never fired a gun before, so I bought a gun, and the test was super easy, but I could tell it's not easy to shoot someone, even if they're 10 feet away. Like with a handgun.
Well, I don't mean easy as far as hitting them. I mean, it's not. It is not pleasant to take somebody's life in a violent way. You just killed somebody. I had to kill somebody, and people would ask me, "Well, what does it?" When it was being lied about and things, they're like, "What does it matter if you killed him or he killed himself?" I said, first of all, it's the truth. I killed him. Second of all, I have to now live with this. I was less than 5 feet from him. I got his blood all over me. You think that was pleasant? I'll never forget that. I just killed a guy. It's not something. A lot of cops even quit after having to kill someone. They can't take it.
And so can we talk about that morning, November? Is it?
Well, I think people are really sick of hearing about that story. I mean,
well, I don't think that's the thing. I think they've heard the lies, I've talked to a bunch of the pastors at the church, and they kind of gave me their account, but I mean, I don't know. I was kind of given like the tour like a couple of weeks later of what happened, but I mean, from your account, I mean, you guys were on alert that morning.
No, that's a lie. That's a lie. People were saying, "Oh, Jeanne called the church and said to beef up security." That's a lie. I didn't know the gunman was coming. I was on the third and final day of my very first fast, and I was going to stay home. I wasn't even going to serve on the church security team. I was going to stay home because I wanted to hear from God about my future. You know, do I stay in law enforcement or do I do something else? And that was the goal of my fast. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stay home today. And I took a break. I was like looking on my computer, and I saw a very small headline that said there had been a shooting at this place called YWAM, which I had never heard of. I was a brand new Christian. I had just been saved on July 17th, 2007, right before the shooting. I just received Jesus into my heart, and then I got on the security team October, and then the shooting happened December 9th. And so I saw that headline about the shooting, and I just got chilled. It was in Arvada, Colorado, which is northwest suburb of Denver. So Colorado Springs is 70-some miles south, and I knew the Holy Spirit said, get to church. And I knew I had to get to church, but I couldn't call the police and say, you know, this gunman, who is still on the loose, by the way, and has killed people at YWAM, is coming to our church. Well, how do you know that? Well, God told me. I mean, how would that sound? Like I'm nuts. And they're like, okay, take your medication, have a nice day.
Right.
So I showered, and I knew I might not be coming home that day, but I didn't say anything to anybody, and I didn't know that the church already knew the gunman was coming. The church knew, the pastor knew, because the gunman emailed them. He emailed saying, we didn't know who this guy was, we didn't know what he looked like, but he emailed them under a pseudonym saying, Christian America, this is your Columbine. He emailed the pastor. And so the pastor, that's why the pastor had all those extra Colorado Springs off-duty officers there. You think I didn't notice that? But I didn't put two and two together. I was just so like, oh my gosh, this guy could be coming here today. I mean, how could I verify my hearing from God? But I was so sure I knew I might not be coming home that day, meaning I could be killed. So 12:45, there's extra people there. I don't know if you were there that day, but we had a guest speaker, and the people didn't leave after the second service. They were lingering, and the cops are all like, well, I'm out of here. And I said, well, there's still a lot of people here, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to sound weird. So they all left. And the gunman, which we won't name his name, was patiently waiting in the parking lot. And when those squads left, he started shooting and killing people in the parking lot. And he went in the back. He was dropping those smoke grenades, which I don't know what that was all about. But, you know, he comes in. He had shot 9 people in total, including the 5 at New Life. And he killed 4, and he killed those sisters out in the parking lot at the church. They didn't have to die if they had paid attention to the email. And I don't usually bring that stuff up, but that's the facts, you know. That's the facts. And so I engaged and killed him in less than 3 minutes, single-handedly. But the neatest part about that is that when I said, God, please be with me, and I stepped out from cover and shouted, as I was trained, police officer, drop your weapon. Immediately this shield, this presence so powerful surrounded me. I'll never forget it. And I knew it was God. And, you know, I shot 5 times. Bam, 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 bam. Rapid fire. He falls back on his back completely. And anyway, 10 times. I shot him a total of 10 times, and I was less than 5 feet. And when the final shots were fired, because he wouldn't stop, he had meth in his system, and so that's, it takes, my rounds were very accurate. He had an AR-15, and I just had my Beretta with 16 rounds, my handgun, and I won. I won because God was with me and God protected me. And there were bullet holes in the wall behind where I stood. That was God protecting me, and that's the part that I like to tell. But don't destroy the story, the other people, by lying about it. It's like, don't lie about what God did that day. You're taking away from what the power of God and the miracles, that nobody was hit when he was shooting down that hallway filled with hundreds and hundreds of people. There were 7,000 people there at the time of the shooting. He had 3,000 rounds. He had an AK-47. He had explosives everywhere. The public doesn't know that stuff. And, there's just so many miracles that happened. No, not one person was hit in that hallway, even though he emptied a magazine through the crowd. People said, I felt the burning. I knew I had been hit. And the person would lift the back of their shirt. Nothing was there, no bullet holes. And one guy said, my son was hit in the ankle, and we lifted up his jeans, and there was nothing there. Very, very interesting. So I'm protective of the truth because the truth matters. So I'm very protective of what really happened.
So, it's an amazing account, and in your posts, you always say that you're not a hero, and you don't like it when people call you a hero.
Correct.
How come?
Because
obviously, a lot of people do consider you a hero, but you're very adamant against not being called that.
Because people who are heroes are not cops. Cops, we signed up to run toward the bad guys, to run toward the danger. And why am I a hero? Because I did my job. It's like a firefighter. Are you a hero because you put out a fire? Are you a hero because you did your job, in other words? I think that is unwarranted. I appreciate the compliment, but I did my job. And I did it well, that's all, because God was with me. But to be called a hero, it's like, just call me a police officer. That's all I want. That's all I want. Just call me what I am, a police officer. What I was. I was off duty that day. Just show me respect that way. That's all I want. I've been called, this woman happened to be at the church and happened to be carrying a legally concealed weapon. It's like, no, I was part of the security team, volunteer. I was in plain clothes, told to be armed, which I was anyway because I was a cop. I was the only cop on the team, the only female on the team, and the truth matters. I've said that countless times. It's like, don't twist an amazing account of what God did and how he used me, because I am honored that God used me. I'm honored. And I don't like it when people, this is going to maybe make people mad, don't call the gunman a dirtbag, because I got to know his family. They're wonderful, godly people. They forgive me, of course. They understand. And they took me in, they welcomed me, and they said they understand I had to do what I had to do. And, that's another miracle right there.
Wow, that is, you don't hear about that. That's incredible. That's the first I've ever heard that, because you do have to deal with the aftermath.
Well, I wanted to know who was the guy that I had to kill, so I wrote that book. I interviewed his parents, and of course they cried. I took out so much because the dad cried when I showed him my chapter, because I self-published. He cried, and I let them edit it. I did it out of respect. I did not feel right about leaving in what made them feel more anguish. They already lost their son. Not only was he the active shooter, he was also killed, and they didn't find out till 9:00 that night.
Mm.
And their feelings meant more to me than putting in the book the truth. Like the stuff that came out. I mean, he was heavily into the demonic, into Illuminati, and that's why he was so messed up. He knew God, but he was in drugs, and he was experimenting heavily with the demonic. That's very sad.
Gosh, that's powerful. That,
Like,
I mean, and you said before, like someone like me on the street with a gun with no training. I mean, am I ready if I have to take a life?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, can you deal with that? And I'm sure being able to interview the family. I mean, did that bring you some peace as far as kind of?
Yeah. It gave me peace, and it also made me protective of the gunman. I mean, yes, he was trying to kill people, but he was very messed up. And I'm not protective of other gunmen. I don't know them. I didn't know. They told me, they sat down with me and they showed me pictures of him, and they said, this was our son. He was very nice. He was loved by his cousins, but he had severe ADHD, attention deficit disorder, hyperactive disorder, whatever. And he was rejected by everybody because they didn't understand him. He was very intelligent with computers. And, when you hear those things about rejection and things, you start to get compassion. I had no choice to take his life, to kill him. I had no choice. He gave me no choice. But then I found out who he was. And so, I did what I had to do, but, his parents are out there. I respect them. Don't call that guy a dirtbag.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And I hope people understand what I mean.
And to hear it from you, from someone who's there, as opposed to all the media accounts. I didn't know what happened for weeks because
it was swayed. There were cover-ups that need to be made.
Yeah, of course.
There would have been lawsuits. Answer for your mistakes. Say we messed up. We could have avoided this, but we didn't. We chose to hold church instead of cancel it, which they could have. That stuff makes me angry. It all could have been avoided. Those girls could still be alive. And that, own up to your mistakes, police department officials and leadership of the church, own up to it. Don't lie.
Yeah.
God would forgive you. You made a mistake. Bad mistake. And ask for forgiveness. Ask the family for forgiveness. The families, the church. But don't lie about it.
Yeah. So what can, how do I remember I ran into you years ago, and I forgot, it was at some conference, whatever, but we were talking about some different things, but you were telling me just some really basic information about protecting yourself. And especially in a time like this, you were saying that if someone tries to drag you into a car, the chances of you surviving if you get into that car are just so minute, and what you have to do to, anything as far as what, with this whole thing going on and everyone's kind of on heightened, and there's protesters and there's people, out in the streets with guns. And what would you say to the people out there to what's the best thing we can do to stay safe and keep our families safe? And of course, and stay away from the protests, but what would you say to that?
I always tell, when I do speaking engagements, I tell if the audience is law enforcement, well, if it's anybody, I say your first line of defense is not your gun, it is God. Because without God, you could die. Your chances are you could die. And so God to be with you like I did and to protect you before you out the door that day. Be with me. Jesus died so we can have the Holy Spirit with every one of us. Why don't we use that wonderful blessing that's in honor of that sacrifice that Jesus did for us? Have the Holy Spirit, invite him to be with you all day, every day, protecting you. He's our comforter, he's our counselor, he's our protector, our guide, he's everything. So, pray first. And the church security team would be nervous. I was messed up for a long time after that shooting because of all the lies, and I got really traumatized. And so it was bad afterwards. I had nobody really understood what I was going through. It was awful. But just ask God to be with you, to protect you. And I would pray when our security team would start services after the shooting, we would all get there early, and I would just pray for God to have angels stationed at each entrance and exit, keep us safe, let us have peace. You don't have to live in fear. That's simple advice. God's more powerful than we are, and if you are involved in a shooting and you want to be safe, or you're someplace where there is an active shooter, you've prayed that day for God to keep you safe. You think he's going to break his promise? In Jesus' name, ask anything in my name and it shall be done unto you. In Jesus' name, I ask you to keep me and my family safe today and every day. To let me know what to do, to help me think quickly, to let my aim be true if need be, if it gets to that. We don't know what God's going to have us do. But as a cop, I am a cop. I will always be a cop. No one's going to take that away from me. And I'm still in the field of law enforcement. So I am armed every single day, and I'm ready every single day. And even my business card says, stay alert, stay aware, stay alive. Simple thing. I'm preaching.
That's great. Wow, that's so. I mean, it's so simple, but it's so powerful. And I think as Christians, we do forget sometimes that if we just say, these things will be done unto you in Jesus' name. I mean, it rings true.
It is true. God is not a man that he would lie. I mean, Psalm 91 is the perfect psalm, No plague shall come near your tent. I think of the virus. And it's like, that doesn't mean you don't go out. The virus was made, we all know that, by evil people. But wear your mask. Take the precautions. Don't lick a grocery cart after saying, God, keep me safe. It's dumb. And I'm being silly with that example. But, God promises he'll keep us safe. When we seek him as the shelter of the Most High God, he's going to keep us safe. That's a powerful
we just
song.
need to be wise. Yeah.
We need to be wise, and we need to believe. He asks us to believe his word. If you pray and you don't believe it, what good is it? It just falls to the ground void. I believe God, whatever he says.
Yeah. Wow, this has been super powerful conversation. I mean, like anything else you want to add as far as, where can people get your book? Can you get it on Amazon?
No, I self-published it, and I didn't know much of the stuff. Like, I didn't find out about all. I was wondering why I was being treated so poorly by both the police and the church leadership. Sorry, but I was. And I was like, what is going on? What did I do? I saved all these people. And so I didn't find out until 2011 when a retired, keyword retired, homicide detective asked to meet with me, and he said, That's when he told me about the email. He said he sent an email warning he was coming to kill, and it was ignored. And he said, I'm surprised. Well, never mind. I'm going to leave that part out. But it was bad. It was really bad. But it made sense why I was treated poorly, and that's why, I left. I left thinking something else, but that's really why they wanted me down. And it's fine. The people of New Life are nice. The people that went there, they were very nice to me, and I was just very confused for years.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I was on staff there 2008, 2009, so I saw you every week, a few times a week. Like, we would always just say hi or pass. We'd pass whatever, we're doing our own thing. But yeah, I remember working there with you. And you're right. There's people in New Life are great, and it's just, but people are people. So
people are people.
No one's perfect.
And we can't lump everybody into one group, which is what's going on right now. And we can't let that happen. And Christians need to witness more by example than by words, because good grief, I love God so much, but I have a potty mouth on me, and I'm trying to be better. I have to work on that, but I do love all people. I don't see color. I never have, so it's just like I don't understand what's going on, but I would like to listen. I like to listen. You're like, why do you feel this way? Why are you hating all cops? Why don't you listen and talk to me? Because I'm a good cop. But I want to kind of finish by telling people, encouraging them to thank police officers and soldiers. I mean, soldiers risk their lives every day as well to protect our country, and I feel like they really get have a thankless job. I think they're heroes. That's a tough thing to sign up for, especially with our conditions that we're in with our world. But with police officers locally as well, thank them too. People are coming up as we're writing reports and shooting us in the back of our head. I'm not in the squad car anymore, but I'm still out there protecting people. I'm doing investigations now, but I do protection cases and teach people how to shoot. Whoever wants to learn how to shoot a gun. I was a range instructor for the Minneapolis Police, which was a high compliment. That's a big department. It was an honor. And so people can call me, and I will teach them how to shoot a gun and the safety and how to have, the right state of mind. You have to have the right state of mind if you are going to carry. Because if you can't take a life, you don't carry, because your gun will be taken from you and used against you. Are you a quick thinker? Do you freak out in chaos? Chaos is my arena. I love it. The more danger, the more I am at home. The day of the shooting, I was like, I have got this. I've got this. I mean, I really felt that way. Plus, I had God with me. I was on the third and final day of my fast. It was the most powerful incident I've ever had in my life. A powerful encounter with God that most people will probably never get a chance to feel. That presence of God. Moses saw God walk by. I wish I was one step behind that. I didn't see God, but I felt him. That's for sure.
Wow. Well, I will. Here's what I'll do is I'll talk to you afterwards about what information you want me to put up on, like the description and contact information, and people can get a hold of you there. But yeah, if you guys want to, any listeners out there that want to learn more about law enforcement, firing a weapon, which I totally encourage anyone who wants to own a weapon, learn how to use it. So that's something I think, and I think everyone should have some kind of weapon and learn to use it appropriately. accordingly.
Safety and gun safety and what not to do. Like, you never take your gun out loaded. You never take your gun out, like in a car or wherever, and say, here's my gun. You'd never take it out unless you're going to use it. And that's why people get shot accidentally all the time. So there's lots of safety things I can teach people too. I will even teach you how to clean your gun after we're done. But there is a price.
I should have probably came to you when I got my gun. I broke all.
Yeah, that's one more thing. Don't just buy a gun. You go feel it. You hold it in your hand. Does it feel right? You don't say, what's a good gun? Because it could be too big for you, for your hand, or too small for your hand. Go hold it, feel it, feel what's right. Maybe shoot it if you go to a range that will allow that, which many will. And that's how you pick a gun if you want to, if you decide you want to carry. It's pretty much it, Rich.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I certainly did. Please click subscribe, and I look forward to more engaging conversations with amazing people.